So this is a real nice one to use. There's some real nice joints in here. When it loads up, as you can see, we've got all our components. We can see there the one that has been grounded. So the gear housing itself has been grounded, so the green one. And what we've got here are some components. We've got the pin that's going to go in the center. We've got the gear that's going to go on the pin, and then finally the crankshaft and its bits and pieces are going to be in there. So I can go straight away to the joint tool command. So I could go up to assembly and joint, but you can see there J, there's a shortcut. So I just type J, go straight to the joint. We're going to select the bottom of the top section of this pin. But what you will notice here, I'm going to now select this pin here. You'll notice as I'm going up and start sliding that I've got other points coming up there. This is actually a midpoint of this particular section. So where we've, in previous, the softwares where you've got to create construction geometry, construction planes to be able to pick up things like that. Actually, in Fusion itself, you've actually got these extra little bits to help you. So like there. So if I wanted to do a midpoint sort of joint, I could do there. With this one, I just want to select this center there, so that bit. And what I want to do is I want to join it to the top there. So if I select that, now you'll notice it's picked up my original, my last command that I used. So the last one that I did was the revolute. I think for this particular, that's all right to actually use here. It will pick up the bottom there, and we just want a revolute. Is the last one. It animates it a little bit. We can press animate and it shows it in there. If I press OK, that's now moved and it's in position. And it's the exact point where I want it. Now, what I next want to do here is put this onto this. Now, again, J for joint. As I hover over this, you'll notice that it can get quite difficult to select exactly what I want. But a little hint: if you hover over the face of something, so I'll say this face here, and I want to pick up a point. If I hold the Control key down, you'll notice no matter where I move my cursor now, it just leaves up this selection set at the top. Or if you're using a Mac, it's the Command key. I can isolate my selection to be the only point on the face. So I'll select the center of the hole now. Clicking that. I can then go to the pin. So I'll go to the top of the pin. And I'll select the top of the pin. And you'll notice there what it's actually done. It's actually spun it round. So what I want to do is flip. So to flip it around the other way. So you've got a flip option there. And rather than being revolute now, I want this to be a tight fit. And if I watch what happens to these when I click rigid, it shakes. So it's a rigid joint. But also what I want to do is I want to actually this to be a push fit, and I want it to be 3 millimeters lower down. So if I start dragging it down, again, I've got the dialog box that comes up, or also in here, I can just type 3 millimeters and OK. So I've now located these two things together. Now where geometry can be a bit more challenging, I've just showed how you can isolate the selection set. So using the Control key. What about where there is no geometry for you to select? If we look at the front end of this crankshaft, so let's see if I can spin this round here. So the crankshaft here, the arm itself, let's move it down. Ideally, what I'd want to do when I'm joining this part is I'd want the midpoint between that face and that face. Sorry, the underside face there. I'd want it to line up with the mid face of the midpoint or the work plane of that face, and wherever it's gone again, that face there. So I'd want it to align midpoint to midpoint there. And as you can see, that I don't think there's much that we can actually select there. Now, what I'm going to do is show you a way that we can actually select between two faces. And the way that I'm going to do that, we're going to start the joint tool. So J, joint tool. So I'm just making sure I get this in the right order for everybody. And if we start the joint tool and then right click, there is actually a between two faces option. So I'll just show you that again. We've started the joint tool. We're hovering off from, so we're not actually selecting anything at the minute. If we right click, we've got between two faces option there. Yep. Now you notice when I deselected it then, so if I select it again, this allows me then to select the first face. Then let's see if I can get under to the second face there. So I've now selected that. Oops, let's see if I can get around it somewhere. So there you can see now we've got this, and then we can select, and then hopefully in the second component again, if we can do between faces, between two faces, between that face, and well, we could do between two faces, but actually what we can do on this, on component 2, if I remove that between two faces option, I've just come out of that, sorry. Hey, let's go back into it, right. So escape, joint tool, let's do this again now. Component 1, right click, between two faces, for that face, and let's see if I can spin this around a little bit. Let's do it this way. And that face. So now we can actually, you can see there, we can select that point I think we've got. Yeah, you can see where it's selected it, that midpoint. With the second component, what I'm going to do is, if you remember here, we've actually got a cylinder going down, and we can actually just move down to that midpoint there. Now that's rigid. We don't want rigid, we want a revolute. You can see that's now got it in position as we want it. So it took a bit of doing that, but we got there in the end, and it showed you another option, and then we can press OK. So we've now leveled that up, and you'll notice that the bushes come with it as we've done it. And then finally, what we can do, we need to actually line up this with this. Now, if they don't line up, if there might be some sort of gap between the top of this boss and the underside of this face here. So what we can do, the joint that we can use for this, we just use joints, and I want that one and that there. If we actually, rather than using a revolute, use a cylindrical joint, which means it can go up and down in that direction. If we then press OK, now what it's done, there's something that's not been fixed at this end. Just hold on, let's move this around here. What we've actually got here is this that's not been fixed in position. That's why it all moved then. So what I need to do with this is in assemble, as built, that component and that component. Position is that one. It wants to be a slider. So like that move, there we go. That's better, that's now fixed in there. So now that we've done that, let's just see whether we can go J up, catch position. Let's click that one and that one. Press OK, and there we go. So we've now actually located that, and we've got that now in position. If we rotate that, you'll see that it will actually rotate. Now, one of the things we can do, we can actually animate this a little bit from this. If we go into the joints and we look at the first Revolute one that we did, which was the very first one, right click and is it animate model, animate joint? That's just the animate joint. Sorry, stop that one. Let's get from that. Right click, animate model. There we go, sorry, animate model. He's just picking the right joint from the top there. So you can actually animate your model and see how it works. And which is great. And then it'll just keep animating and moving until we've done. And that's it, it'll basically run until you stop it. So to stop it, I just have to press escape. It stops. We can also select any joint and set joint limits and set a pause position using the reset option. So in here, you know, there's lots of bits and pieces that you can do. So you can edit the limits that it moves to. You can lock it. You can actually, you know, drive the joints